Hey, what is going on, guys? Today we're taking a look at Kotobukiya's 1/35th scale border break Kisei Kuushiki kit, and I gotta say, it's pretty awesome. If you guys didn't watch the live build of this, you can go back and watch the live stream build that I did building this kit. It was pretty fun to put together, I gotta say. Very interesting build, I can say that. But this kit, as you guys may well know, is very expensive. It's list price around $115, $120 you're gonna be paying for this, so it's not cheap by any means, and it's not that big of a kit either. Later on I'll do a size comparison to show you guys just how big it is, but it's about the size, about the height of like a small master grade basically. Obviously it's a little bit wider just because it's different proportions, but while it's not very big, it has a ton of detail on there. The part separation is very good, very minimal seam lines on there as well, which is pretty nice. So the kit quality and like articulation, everything, and again just the level of detail that's in there is all absolutely fantastic. That is all nothing to complain about with this kit by any means. So I think just the price is going to be the main thing that's going to be holding people back from wanting to pick up this kit. And so that's why I wanted to do the live stream. So if you guys are really interested in it and still on the fence, just go watch the live stream as well for some more kind of additional information, or just kind of to see the building process, how that went together. But over the course of this review, I'll let you guys know as much as I can about this kit to help you decide if you really want to break out your wallets or break your wallets and pick up this kit. And so as always, guys, a huge thank you to SI Gundam Store for their support in making this review possible. Check the link to their site down below in the video description, where you can get this kit and everything else there on their site for 10% off, especially for an expensive kit like this. Saving a little money on that will definitely always help. So just make sure you use that coupon code there, ZakuAurelius10. Now, first off, let's just go through the accessories that you get here included with the kit. So first up, we do have some hand options here. You've just got the closed fists on there. Those can be swapped out for these open hands, which are very nicely detailed, as you can see, or the weapon holding trigger finger hands here for the left and the right side. Then you also have this optional part here for around on the back. Now again, I'm not familiar with the game or the lore very much at all, so this just basically replaces this part here on the back. If you pop this one out, which I think I'm gonna need my knife to help me do. There you go. Once that's out, then you can just put this on here instead for this part here on the back. That is fit onto there like so. And then we have two different options for the weapon. So this first one is this rifle. Again, just really cool design, a super nice part separation here as well, with the little green parts there for the tip, little green parts here, here, and here, and all the gray and white parts going in between each other like that. Now this does also fold for being stored. You can see this part here, this hinge, where it folds. Now the thing is, at the hinge there where it rotates around is really tight, but the connection here into the body, you can see, is just these two pegs in here, and they've already got some stress marks on there because those just plug into there. Now that's not a very strong connection, but this hinge is pretty strong, so when you're bending that is really tight, and I almost bent and broke those pegs off at first. So just make sure you hold everything in place while you're rotating that around. But you fold that up like so, and this can be plugged onto his back. Here you've got this kind of rail here on the left side or the right side, you can choose. But according to the manual, it's supposed to be plugged in here onto this side like so, like that. So that'll be just stored up over his shoulder, which is pretty cool. And so the weapon is this big giant sword weapon, which is also pretty nice. So this one, the back end of that will extend out, the front part will extend out like that. This is for the full length when it's going to be in use, and then when you're storing that, you'll just close that back up. And this one also has this little peg hole. This will plug onto the backpack. Now you can, if you want, plug onto this side. It does fit onto there kind of, but not really super well. It's meant to be plugged here onto the center section, so just wanted to clarify that for you guys. It's meant to be plugged onto there, and then both of its weapons are stored on its back, which is pretty cool. And that is the extent of the accessories, so not a whole lot of accessories, but the ones that it does have I think are pretty cool. The hand options are nice, very nicely detailed. The weapons are cool, and the way those fold up or store onto the body are also really interesting. I like that. Now, that is it for the accessories. Let's take a look at some of the articulation for this guy. So starting off here at the head, this is one area where unfortunately the articulation is not very good. The head will only go like up to about there. That is about the extent of that. And of course you can rotate that side to side as well, and it's all really nicely detailed. And these are just one area where you do want to be a little bit careful, because these antenna bits on the side of the head can pop off kind of easily. So just a little drop of glue on there and you should be good. In the midsection here, you've got a bend forward and back like that for a pretty nice ab crunch to the front. There's no side to side bend, but you can also just rotate that there at the waist as well. For the shoulders, this kind of gray bit here around the side of the torso is kind of separate in between the main body and the arm. It doesn't really move a whole lot though. You can kind of move that in and out a little bit, and you can sort of rotate that a little bit, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's kind of just meant to just be there, I think. The shoulders really just start over here, so basically forward and back movement of the shoulders, you're going to have a little bit of movement there, but not a whole lot. This part here on the outside of the shoulder is just on a ball joint, so that can move around as you might need, or rotate, whatever you might like. There's a little vent up inside there. Ultimately, you can get the arms up to about 90 degrees, it looks like, there to the body. And then at the top of the arm, you've got some rotation there, and your elbow joint is going to give you more than 90 degrees, but as you can see, just a nice full bend there. The arms are asymmetrical, so you've got this bit here on the back of this arm. I don't know what that is, but that's there on the back of the arm. If you want to pull that off, that just comes off really easily like that. If you didn't want to have that on there, that just plugs onto there. On the other side, as you can see, it's got a little bit different equipment with this thing here on the side of the arm, whatever that is. And you could plug this bit on the back of this arm onto this arm if you wanted. Again, it's up to you. And then the wrist is just on there via a ball joint, which is just in there in the socket, which is not really all that tight. It doesn't feel like it's going to come out all that easily. I mean, it feels like it's not going to just fall out of there, but it does feel like it's maybe a little bit loose. So we'll have to see once it gets to holding the weapons. If it has trouble holding up the weapons, that might be a possibility, I think. Moving down here to the waist section, no front skirt movement or anything with this part, but on the back, this flap here does move up and down a little bit. As you can see, that will move like so. You do have a point there to plug this onto an action base there at the back of the hip section. As for the sides of the hips here, connected onto the sides of the thighs, you have these parts which will rotate around. They're on ball joints as well, but you can't really get too much of like a rocking motion out of them, basically just rotation. They do have some cool gimmicks though with this. This little flap here on the side will move. That will open up just ever so slightly like that. So you can open that up, and then this little thruster nozzle here out the back can also extend out. So there is the extension of that and then pushed in. So that's kind of another cool small little gimmick about that for when it's actually in use. Fold out the flap, pull that out, and it gives a more kind of boosting look to that, which is pretty cool. Otherwise, the legs at the top of the hip will rotate there as well. They're just connected onto the main hip section via a ball joint, so you're just going to be able to get them out to the side only to about there. And I did notice this is, I was just about to mention that, this is another weak point of it, is just this part here. Let me just pull off the leg there so you guys can see that very well. This part here for basically holding the leg onto the waist section there, that's just two parts sandwiched together with a poly cap in between. And then this little white part that fits onto the top of there. And I'm finding that this part comes apart pretty easily. So just make sure, again, just glue that and you'll be totally fine. By that I mean just those two gray parts, just glue them together so those don't pop apart. And then that white part, again, if you're painting or not, just glue that ultimately on top of there, and you'll be totally fine with this section. It's just because I'm moving it around and nothing's glued that it's just a little bit loose, and I think it's mostly just because of the poly cap in there. But it's a small thing, not really anything to complain about ultimately, because it's very easily fixable. So then moving down on here to the knees, and the knee joint is very stiff, so just make sure you're moving this carefully as well. Just give that a good bend there. As you can see, you can get a really nice full bend there at the knee. No separation of this part here at the front, but it's just kind of all connected into like the lower leg there. Down here at the ankles, those will move side to side like that, and then also forward up to there and back all the way to there, and then just some rotation here as well, some rotation there like that. And the toe part does also move on its own as well, up and down a little bit like so. This part here on the side of the foot doesn't move at all, it's just plugged straight on there to the side of the foot. But up underneath the feet, you got wheels. Both of these wheels just rotate freely inside there, so those are actually working Heelys that he's got on. And that is it for the articulation, but while we've got him up close and personal here, another thing that I just want to mention is about just the color separation, which is fantastic. As you guys can see, just all the little bits of green, everything, none of that's a sticker, it doesn't have any stickers included. But on the opposite side of that, I will say I do kind of wish that this would have come with some waterside decals for some markings for us, so that's unfortunate, but at least no color correcting stickers or anything like that, of course. The other thing is about the seam lines on this kit. Now, a lot of Kotobukiya kits, at least a lot of the ones that I've built, always have a lot of seam lines on them, unfortunately, but this one really doesn't. It has a small seam line here on the white parts on the back of the head. There's a little seam line in between those two. On the back of the arms, a little seam line here, and that's pretty much it on the whole kit itself. The rest of the arms, legs, body Doesn't have any seam lines anywhere around on there. On the weapons, there are a couple, as you might expect, though pretty obviously here on the sword, going down through the center of these white parts, you've got a seam line there. And the same thing for the rifle. Between the two halves of the white parts for that, you've got seam lines down there, but that's still pretty minimal for this kit. So the seam lines and the details, the color separation on this is all pretty dang good. And now I mentioned before about this not being all that big, so here's the size comparison. As you can see, it's coming right about in between 1/144 scale Gundam and 1/100 scale Gundam size. It's going to be right about in the center of that. So again, about the same height as a small master grade, or I guess alternatively a pretty big high grade. But while it's not very tall, it is obviously a little bit more wide, so it's got a lot of parts in there. So it's essentially like comparable to a master grade kit, I would say, and just the parts and the complexity, the level of detail on there, and just the articulation is similar to a master grade kit if we had to compare. But of course, the price being double what most master grades cost, that is obviously going to be a pretty big hindering factor in a lot of people wanting to pick up this kit. So while this definitely does look really cool once you get it posed up with the weapons and in an action pose, I already broke off the trigger finger on the left hand there holding onto the sword, so that's unfortunate. Just the connection for that finger is this really tiny little bit of plastic, so just getting the hand into place, the finger just popped off. So be very careful with that. It's going to be a very easy fix again with just a little bit of glue. Not the worst thing in the world, but just again, be careful with that tiny little trigger finger part that it has. But so ultimately, let's just weigh out the pros and cons here. So the pros, it has fantastic detail. It's got some pretty good articulation on there. I will say it does have a couple weak points of articulation, but overall it is pretty good. It's got some really nice color separation in there, so painting this kit is going to mean you have very little to do in the way of masking. That's always nice. It's also got very minimal seams, which is also good. That's just one less thing you have to worry about if you're going to be painting the kit. And then of course just its overall cool factor. It's just a really cool, very unique design. It's definitely got that going for it. Now as for the cons, obviously the big one is just going to be the price. That's just going to be the number one biggest con for this kit, obviously. But then aside from that, one other just small kind of nitpick, I guess, that I could make is just the fact that it doesn't come with a stand for it. That would have been nice, just a really simple little stand just to help it stand up, because I'm noticing that in action poses it does have a little bit of trouble standing, because while it's not standing entirely on the wheels, just balancing on those wheels can be a little bit tricky, because they are actually protruding out the bottom of the feet a little bit. So when you're trying to get it to stand up, while the feet are pretty large and you got a lot of surface area there on the feet, you wouldn't think standing would be that difficult, but I have been having a little bit of trouble just getting it to stand up easily. So if they would have included just a simple base along with this, that would have been nice. And I guess also, like I mentioned before, a couple of waterslide decals for some markings of this would have been nice as well, but those are pretty minor things. Ultimately, this is a pretty cool kit, definitely. It's a really cool design, and I think they pulled off the kit really well. But for most people out there, I wouldn't really recommend this just because of the price. But if you're a big fan of the design and if you can justify spending the money on it, then I would say go for it. It's the kind of kit that, as I mentioned during the live stream, I think if you just want to get the kit and build it and just snap it together and put it up on your shelf, then you might not find that it's really worth the price. But if you're willing to put in time on it, give it a really nice paint job, detail it all up, do a little bit of weathering on there as well, some dry brushing to bring out all those nice sharp pointy edges around on all the armor and everything, and you want to make it look really pristine, then you're going to have a really super nice looking piece when it's all said and done. For the majority of you watching out there, I imagine most of you are going to prefer to spend your $120 on 2, 3, or 4 Bandai Gundam kits or something like that instead. But if you're looking for something more unique, more different, and really nicely detailed, then I would say check the kit out. But if you guys do still have any other further questions or comments, of course, feel free to leave those down below. I think I covered everything, so there's not really too much else to say about this at this point. But again, just a big thank you to SA Gundam Store for their support and letting me take a look at this kit and review it here for you guys. Hopefully the review has been helpful for any of you who were looking for some more information on the kit. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.